AC in the system, Chris?
Okay, so some of the older stuff between the wells and the tanks is the cast with the leaded joints.
With leaded joints, yeah.
And then you get more PVC as you move into the distribution system.
So this area here has got older pipes where they used lead to pack the joints. And and theoretically, the water's not touching the lead, so we don't think it's a health issue, but there's always concern when you have lead, especially if you have pipes and leaks in lead. Any thoughts about that?
Yeah, actually, every 3 years, we've had waivers for lead copper testing because our water's been good. This year is one where we're taking 10 samples probably this month to check for it. Not had any problems in the past that I've been aware of, but just so happens you bring it up, I've got 10 bottles to get out here in the next week.
Yeah, the historical data don't show any lead excursions, so we don't think that we've got any health issue here, but anytime there's lead on a water system, it makes me nervous. So by putting new pipeline in, you get some improved service that way. So let's talk a little bit about cost, right? That's what we all care about. And costs go up every day. So there are a whole bunch of different costs that we've looked at. There are lots of different alternatives, lots of different pieces. I'm gonna talk through the major projects that we had done historically, one that we added to explain how these came about. So Project A, the famous Project A, was what was recommended way back when. That's that new 12-inch line that goes around. It's a new tank up there, just up on the hill behind us here, and a little bit of new distribution line. That project takes care of several things. So it includes the general improvements, that's controls, the well number 7 upgrades, some upgrades to well number 8, and that's new here. That was not the original project, but DEQ is asking us to remove those torpedo tubes. So that's been added. It includes on the storage tank a new water tank and then some new controls. And then on distribution, again, that new 12-inch line from well 7 to city, or to town. That total cost is about anywhere from $3 to $3.5 million, give or take. And we've seen those prices jump up quite a bit over the last year and a half because of tariffs, because of some of the additional stuff we have to do. And now the way we base these costs is we look at historical prices, what we're paying for stuff. And in 18 they jumped up, and in 19 they jumped up again. So we're estimating. The important thing here is to remember what we're trying to do with the facility plan is budget. We're trying to establish a budget that then the district can do a project with. If you come in under budget, that's great. If you come in over budget, that's a problem, because if you decide to do a project, you're going to be passing a bond, and you need that to stretch as far as you need the project to go. Undershooting there means you don't have enough money to build what you want to build.
Is that 12-inch, the 12-inch you're putting in, is that going to have services running off of it, or is that pipe just going to service the existing pipe?
It's primarily transmission, meaning it goes from the system and loops around, but it does have 4 interconnection points to the main line. That's how you get that higher fire flow.
They don't, nothing connects to that for that?
No houses connect directly out.
Because you could do HDPE or PVC.
Anything, yeah. And that's a benefit because different prices have different costs right now.
Yeah, big time.
So, and a couple things to note on these costs, and I'll talk about them a little bit more. You're dealing with a bunch of different things. The new tariffs are applying to anything that's metal or steel or, metal or concrete. A lot of major materials. But most of the funding sources you're going to look at have something called American Iron and Steel. They require that you use American-made iron and steel. Because there's so much demand, those prices have almost tripled in the last couple of years.
Could you do me a favor? Could you back the projector up so that's a little bit bigger and make it easier for people to see?
Huh? I'm not sure how big I can get it. Could you help me with my leash there, Robin?
Oh, that's better.
Thank you, thank you.
Is that sharp?
A little sharp.
Well,
How about that?
no. There you go.
It's just a little bit.
Depends on whose eyes we're doing here.
Yeah.
How's it on the back row? How's the back row look? Can't see it.
Nothing blurry?
I just said maybe 20 years old, not today.
Yes. And I know, we were trying to figure out how to show this stuff in a way that made sense. So what this really shows is, on these columns, this is project A, project B, project C, D, and E. The first four were the ones in the original facility plan. E's been added. And on this side are supply improvements, storage improvements, distribution improvements. And then each of the green checks, if anybody could see those, indicate which of those improvements are included in each one of those items. So A was kind of giving you a new storage, new transmission, keeping the old wells and running that way, and then upgrading what we think the most important items are. Project B then was the next project, and that was saying, all right, we want to run that 12-inch line around to the system, but we don't want to build a new tank. We want to rehab the existing tank. And so that project then looks at the general improvements to the supply, to the wells, improvement to well 7, and improvement to well 8. It also now includes a generator at well 8. And the reason that's there is because the existing tank isn't big enough to give you your storage volume that's required by DEQ unless you have a fully reliable water supply. So if you have well 7 and well 8, either one that can run, and that means a generator on well number 8, you can then count that so the lower volume, the reduced volume of your existing tank still works and meets DEQ criteria.
Steve,
Yeah.
would you speak to the DEQ memo on financing?
Whether it's fundable?
The fact that they won't fund rehabbing the tank.
Yeah, and so what Steve's talking about is, and I think a lot of you were part of this conversation, but the DEQ was going to fund this project for a 30-year period. In order to do that, they want the improvements they fund to last at least as long as they're funding. The verbiage they're using is significantly longer, but whatever that means, whether that's a year longer or 10 years longer. So they're saying that because nobody can guarantee that that tank will last that 30 years, that DEQ is less likely to fund anything that has to do with the existing tank.
Well, they said they won't fund it. To be clear.
They won't fund it because the life is less. Excuse me?
And that's a big change from all the things that we've reviewed up to this point, was that when DEQ came out with that note, with that memo, it said we will not fund rehabilitation of that because we don't feel it will go beyond or well beyond the life expectancy of the loan that we would make to you.
Yeah. And that's something for the board to consider,
When I
because,
talked to Katie Baker, she told me she thought that if we brought in a different engineering group and they went through it, that if it would go longer, she would fund it too, so.
and you're right, Calvin, what they need is somebody to say that it's gonna last 35 years, 40 years, something like that.
Correct. That's what I was told.
And that's true. So if somebody else can sign off on that, then that would be an option for the district. Another option for the district would be if you choose to keep the existing tank, but you don't have DEQ funded, then that would work too, if you've self-funded it.
And can you just speak to the number on the rehab part?
Yeah, so let me get to some storage improvements. So on that alternative, then we still have the controls upgrades we talked about. And then in this case, B included a new Dromore storage tank. So that's taking that 11,000 gallon tank and making that 100,000 gallons to meet fire flow and pressure. And that tank is roughly, it's around $500,000 to a Dromore tank. And then rehabilitating the existing ferry tank, and there are a huge range of different ways you can do this. So we looked at 4 different options. What everybody said they wanted to do was do the same thing that the park did. So what they did was they went in, they did crack sealing, they rehabbed the inside, outside, they replaced the stairs going down, they replaced all the piping. And that cost back in 2011 was roughly $370,000 or so.
I got 282,000, and then they put in a mile or two of pipe down the road with fire hydrants.
So we actually ended up getting the pay request from the engineer that put that together. And after all the change orders, because they added a bunch of stuff in, the final cost was, help me with the number?
About 353 for just the tank, and then the total project was about 550, I can look, and that included that additional work.
Included the
they added.
pipeline stuff.
Because I just got, this is in March, and this is what they claim is,
Yeah, and Calvin, we've been fighting the same thing. I've heard 600,000, I've heard 300,000. So we finally got the final amount that was paid to the contractor, and that was at 353. So I'm happy to send that to you.
okay. Well, still 353 to almost $1 million, it's a huge jump.
Yeah, so but that was 2011, so